Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope this finds you well. Today, we're going to look at, as usual, the Kaspa chart. We are going to look at Bitcoin. We are going to look at the US stock market and offer some perspectives and different ways to look at the charts to get an idea of what lays ahead, so our edge is as sharp as we can be as we navigate the icy slopes of the markets. So today, let's first start taking a look at Kaspa, the Kaspa USD pair. One thing that I'm finding interesting right now is kind of just assessing the price action, focusing on these channels that seem to be repeating over and over on Kaspa. As you can see, we had a bit of a channel, a descending channel here, and it broke down below and then got back up. And you can see all the touch points. So even though it did fall out of it, it did still respect many of the points of this channel. And what you'll notice happens often is that it tests the bottom, it pops above the midline, right? We get above the midline, it tests that, and then it pops above the channel, it back tests it, continues higher. You can see that kind of playing out over and over again. Boom, right? It turns it into support eventually, and then it just boom, it breaks up, it does a big, massive move to the upside, and then it goes into another accumulation phase. And oftentimes you see a channel form. And what we have right here is another beautiful channel. We can see that it has dropped down to the lower trend line of this descending channel and tested it twice. And then it has popped up, it's come down. And now currently, if we look a little bit closer, we can see that Kaspa is in fact above the midline. So me personally, I expect at one point it will begin holding this midline just as it has in the past, and then it will trend up, and eventually price will, at some point, it will back test the upper end of this trend line, and then it will continue up. And you can see that it is something that has happened here. It has popped up, back test, trended up. And so at some point, I think that's going to happen here. And whether or not this is V pump, time will tell. But I think that's something to be aware of. So once it does in fact break up, the targets that I am looking at are, we can look at it a few different ways. We can draw the Fibonacci on this range and target the 35 cent region, or we can also draw it on this range and we can target closer to 50 cents. And I think that's more likely, just psychologically speaking. I think that is a fair price. I think Kaspa is still undervalued. And I think that people will begin to FOMO in later on and miss this beautiful, amazing accumulation range. You can see timing-wise, we'll look at another Kaspa chart here. Timing-wise, this range, this phase here, as I've shared a few times already, lasted in the 4 to 5 cent area for about 216 days before it popped up. And in this sideways range, which is very similar, and in fact, in my opinion, more bullish than this one, because the dip was not nearly as steep as this dip. Yet we are still within the 216 days that occurred on this range. We're not there yet. So 216 days would put it into sometime in June if this sort of time frame played out again. So we're basically just going sideways as we did here. There's really nothing too much different. Further below the 20 and 21 week SME and EMA, Kaspa did in fact drop down for about 23 days below these moving averages, closing candles on the daily time frame for about 23 days. Currently, we are about 24 days. So we've been down below these moving averages for now 24 days. And perhaps that is why we are starting to get some upward price action. And so again, that isn't so different from this, this price action down here. So I think that time is on our side. We still have quite a bit of time that potentially Kaspa could just kind of continue sideways before it breaks out. Of course, it could always do something different. Patterns don't always need to repeat. So only time will tell how it plays out in the end. And just as taking a look quickly, because we want to get a sense of where the market is going as a whole, Bitcoin often kind of colors the sentiment. We got a drop down here, which was something that I kind of expected based on this chart. And I'll go into that in a second. But quickly, price came down here. If we look at one of my previous YouTube videos, it is 56,000, perhaps that axis. 56,000 was a pretty interesting level. 56,000, perhaps that axis support. Maybe we get a wick or something like that and kind of get back into this channel and do something like this, you know, and then 2, 3. So looks like 2 weeks ago, and what do you know? We pretty much did that so far. So are we going to next kind of get a move up, you know, like something like where it pops back up right here? How's it looking? So far, we're popping back up, and we'll see. If we look at what Bitcoin did here after the Bitcoin halving, I basically just took this fractal and put it here. So far the price is, in fact, in line with that. After the Bitcoin halving, it just went sideways back here, right? And then it moved up. The difference is that price is now near the all-time high, the previous 2021 all-time high. So if we go sideways for a bit and we follow the time frame that Bitcoin put in its peaks after the last Bitcoin halving, we could in fact be looking at 2025. So that wouldn't be out of the ordinary. And if that's the case, with Kaspa, we can expect, you know, positive price action because capital just flows from higher cap assets like obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, top 10s, and it just kind of rotates. And I think Kaspa's fundamentals justify much higher prices. So I'm pretty bullish. And for me, this is a beautiful accumulation range that we have right here. You know, if we look at the all-time chart, I mean, it's a beautiful chart. Very few, you won't really see many assets that are having such beautiful price action, such as Kaspa. So I think that speaks to the fundamentals. And I'll do a video on fundamentals at some point. I tend to focus more on technical analysis on here on YouTube. But, you know, we can also look at, and this colors the price action of crypto too, the US stock market. Even if you're not in the US, you want to pay attention to this. The stock market generally tends to backtest its all-time high before moving higher. And what's interesting here is that it is backtesting the 20 and 21 week SMA, like pinpoint backtest. And so this is kind of interesting. We'll see how this develops, but it's possible that this was the low before the S&P 500 reaches higher levels, higher Fibonacci extensions, in which case that is going to be very, very good for Bitcoin. It's going to be very, very good for Kaspa. And so we want to see continued positive price action on the stock market, and we want to see positive price action on Bitcoin. And Kaspa, I believe, on its next leg up, can potentially reach as high as 50 cents. To share a little bit about Bitcoin, we have these two channels that we're looking at right now. It could very well come back down and maybe retest the bottom of this channel or the bull market support band before moving higher. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see it break below these channels. We don't want to see it break below the 20 and 21 week SMA and EMA. So we don't want to see that. But one thing to notice is that if you zoom out on the weekly time frame, what we have here is a very beautiful bullish hammer that pretty much pinpointed the 20 and 21 week SMA and wicked up, and price is just right back up in this channel. And anytime that happens, where there's a bullish, or not even bullish, but just a hammer candle off of the 20 and 21 week SMAs, SMA and EMA, that generally leads to continued momentum. You can see it right here. It happened right here. And if you go back to the rally in 2016 and 2017, you can see that if it wicked below, got above, very bullish, wick onto it, wick here and up, wick here, big wick here and up, and it just pretty much tests that and moves higher. So if you zoom out and kind of look at what we're doing right now, we have a little bit of fear because people are wondering if we're going to have a triple peak. But if you look at that weekly hammer candle, you could argue that things are looking quite promising for continued upside. And in terms of Elliott waves, what sort of price action can we expect going forward? This is the sort of, if this just repeated, which it probably won't repeat, but just speculating, we could continue to rally up to say 150,000 before it pulls back to 100,000 and then continues up to like 200,000. Let's see. I'm gonna put it out there. Time will tell, whether or not that's right in 2025 or however long it takes. Judging by the time from when the halving occurs to the time Bitcoin puts in its peak, the last cycle, if it repeats. So we'll see how that plays out in terms of levels and time frame. Obviously, that's all just speculative and time will tell. So what we don't want to see again is Bitcoin falling below these moving averages, in which case then we have to look, if it starts back testing these moving averages, as you can see here, then we have to look at some lower moving averages as potential targets for support. So we're not going to go into that right now because it's not really super relevant, but that is something for another day, perhaps next bear market, assuming Bitcoin continues up. And apologies for the background noise you might be hearing as cars pass by my window, but hopefully this was helpful. If you guys want to join the Ski Bum Trading Discord for more insights, more up-to-date, just daily price talk and charts and updates as the price action unfolds, you'll find a link to that in the description below. You will also find that pinned to the comments or in my Twitter bio. And otherwise, feel free to drop some comments. Let me know things that you might be interested in seeing or things that I did not expand on enough. And if I can accommodate, I'm happy to. So until then, I'll catch you on the next video, and be well.